Welcome back to Real Lounge Entertainment. As always, I'm Mike, and here we are. Spooky season has begun, day two. And today I'm going to do something a little different than just like a normal movie review or something like that. I just want to talk about some of the movies or certain scenes from movies that scared me as a kid or even as an adult. Just a few of them that really stuck with me and I have maybe a story from. So maybe the movie was really scary, or maybe something that was happening in the house when I was watching that really scared me. Just some of the stuff. And I would love to hear some of the scary moments from your childhood or even as an adult. What movie scared you or what scene? Now, not all these are even horror movies or Halloween movies. Some of them, one of them is a comedy that I actually love, but that didn't stop it from giving me nightmares for a very long time as a child. So, sit back and let's talk about some movies that scared us. Now, the first one I want to bring up to you is a movie that kind of got me really going into loving film and made me want to become a director at one point. Now, those days are kind of behind me, but that movie is Scream. Scream is the first slasher movie I ever saw. My best friend Brian lived down the street from me. His parents weren't home, and I was spending the night at his house. His parents were going to come back later, and my mom didn't really let me watch rated R movies, but he had Scream, and neither of us had watched it. So of course we watched it, just me and him. It's nighttime, and it was getting pretty scary. And Brian was kind of acting into it. He got really scared and had like a knife, like because he heard someone at the door, and it really freaked me out. And just that thrill of being so scared for the first time from a movie just really stuck with me. And I just wanted to make something that would make audiences feel the same way when they watch something that like I made for a movie or something. So just the thought of like going back to my childhood, watching Scream on the couch with him, just brings back so many good memories. And the first time I was really terrified from a horror movie. And, the rest is history with me. Now, the second one I want to talk about is first I gotta say is my parents did not watch horror movies, period, except for one that we'll get into a little bit later. But my mom and sisters were going to Toronto, and me and my brother and my dad were going to stay home for the weekend while they went in Toronto. So it was just boys' time. And my dad, like I said, didn't like horror movies, but was a big sci-fi guy. And there's a movie called Event Horizon that was coming out, Blockbuster, for the first time. And I don't know if my dad didn't know it was horror and just thought it was sci-fi. And I was really young. My brother is 5 years younger than me, so he was definitely too young. So he rented it, and the three of us stayed up late watching it. And at no point did my dad turn this off, saying, "Wow, this is too much for you guys," because that movie is gory. There's nudity in it. There's swear words. This movie terrified the crap out of me. I was very afraid of, the devil and demons already from a movie that we're gonna get into later when in a minute. But that movie just it scared me. It stayed with me forever. Years later, I love that movie, and I can see why it terrified me as a child. And Dad, you definitely shouldn't have let me, let alone Paul, watch it when we were so young. So I just want to know, did you know it was a horror movie, or did you just think it was sci-fi? I think I know the answer. So coming in the next one is a movie that I didn't even watch the whole movie. Like I said, my mom and dad didn't watch horror movies at all. But I remember coming out in the living room one time when I was really young, and my mom and I think sister and maybe one of their friends, or my mom's friend, were watching something, and I didn't know what it was. And I just saw like a couple minutes of it, and there was a kid on like a cross in a field, and there was like these things coming in the ground. It was like uh, digging up the dirt and stuff like that. And there was this weird filter on it, and the kid's like screaming, saying no or something like that. And without even knowing what this movie ever was at that time, it terrified me so bad and gave me nightmares that night. Those those images just stuck in my head forever. They're still in there. And I didn't, think much of it after that, in the fact that like I need to know what this movie is or anything like that. But when I started watching horror movies all these years later, I eventually watched Children of the Corn, and that's what the movie is. And watching Children of the Corn now, obviously it's not scary anymore to me, but that one, I will always have that memory of that movie. Just not even the movie, just that scene terrified me as a child. I don't know what my mom was doing watching it. It's definitely not like in her, realm of movies she watched, but I don't know. She probably doesn't even remember watching it at this point. And a fun little note is when I started watching all these horror movies, I would get so scared that I couldn't go to bed without first watching something else. So I would like watch a horror movie with all these horrible things happening, violence and gore and blood and everything like that. And then I would have to watch like a Disney movie or a cartoon movie or a TV show like Ed, Ed and Eddie or something like that from my childhood. So I'd be watching like Halloween 2 and then I'd be watching like Aladdin or something. So that thought always stuck with me. And when I eventually get my kids into horror movies when they're old enough, I'll probably kind of follow a similar thing with them. Like, hey, we should watch something that's a little bit more tame after that to get your mind settled so you can actually sleep and not have nightmares. But definitely think about it a lot, as a kid. Just and then there's two movies that aren't even horror movies that scared slash terrified, kind of combined it into one word. Definitely terrified me and gave me nightmares as a kid. And the first one I have come to realize terrified anyone who actually saw it, and that wasn't many back then because it bombed in theaters. Return to Oz. Every moment in this movie is just truly scary. Did they really think they were making a movie for kids? Now, lots of people always say the witch and the heads on the wall and her headless body changing heads is what really scared them, and it was scary. But for me, the stuff that really terrified me was those creepy wheeler people. They were like on their all fours on these long limbs, and they had like wheels, so they were like wheeling through the streets and stuff like that. And they wore these weird, creepy masks. And of course, there's this part where there's a sand, and if you fall into the sand, you turn into sand. Oh my gosh, I probably didn't want to walk on sand ever again. Maybe that's the reason I still hate sand to this day. I will never know. But that movie, those scenes have stuck with me forever. It has been probably 25 years since I've watched that movie. I still haven't rewatched it. But I guarantee you when I watch it, it might give me goosebumps now just because of how scary it was. And let alone like 7-year-old me, I think I watched that at my grandma's house. She probably just put it on thinking it's just, oh, it's a Wizard of Oz movie. He can just sit down and watch it. But I definitely remember watching it there for some reason. If she only knew what it would do to me in my brain when I was like 7. The second movie that is a comedy that I love to this day, and it shouldn't be scary at all, and that is Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Of all things, definitely scared me. This movie, there's a scene when they die, and then they go down to hell at one point, and they're on these like rocks, and then there's this big Satan, and he's like pulling in the rocks. That made me scared of the devil more than anything I think ever in my life. I remember having nightmares about that devil from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey for at least a year straight. Not only that, once the devil pulls them in, they go into these tunnels and they all have their nightmares coming true to them. One of them is like this evil bunny, Easter bunny, and he's like chasing him, and he's all creepy with his voices. Another is a grandma who wants to give, I think, Bill kisses, and she's got like hairy lips, and she's just like chasing him through the tunnel. And another one's like a drill sergeant who's like yelling at him, trying to do push-ups and stuff like that. All these things are truly terrifying. I know it's a comedy, but there's a good 10-minute section of that movie that is downright frightening. And I don't know if anyone else feels that way because I don't think I've heard anyone else talk about how scary that is, but it definitely terrified me and probably gave me more nightmares than anything has ever given me nightmares about. Now, I've seen a lot of movies at this point, tons of horror, because at one point, especially when I started loving horror movies after Scream, I was just watching anything I could. And as you watch more and more, they don't scare you that much. It's very hard to get me scared or give me goosebumps or something like that. So there's not really too many movies I want to say that have scared me per se, but let's just talk about a few of the more modern ones that have, at least creeped me out a little bit or maybe have me second guessing when I'm alone in the dark in my house or something like that, because that's as close to as I'm going to get of really being scared of movies nowadays. And the first one I want to talk about is The Descent. I love this movie. This is a great movie. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it for anyone who is a horror fan or they're not really animals, but like animalistic type of stuff kind of fits the bill. But it's about these girls who go in these caves, spelunking or whatever it's called, and there's these creatures that evolve down there that are like humanoid demon kind of things, and they eat them and they fight them and all that kind of stuff. But the score is so low, and the way they shoot it in like the tunnels and stuff, and the darkness and only the light from their heads, hats and stuff like that, makes you feel so claustrophobic, and it really got to me. So the movie didn't necessarily scare me, but man, I was like hearing myself breathe in that movie because I saw it in theaters, which was a great way to see that movie. And it kind of just, I loved it. There's nothing better, especially the older you get, than being able to feel scared again for like the first time in a long time. And that's one of the movies that have done it. Now, another movie that is probably the closest movie that scared me in a long time, and that's The Conjuring. Now, this one came out when me and my wife were dating at the time, and we would go see horror movies, and then we would like go out into the not in the field, but like we'd park on the street by the farms because there's farmland over where I lived at the time, and we'd park the car, turn off the lights, and stand out of the car in the nighttime, just with the wind, and you could pitch blackness, and we would just listen to like the corn blowing in the wind, and we'd just make up stuff and creep each other out. Like, did you hear that? Sounds like dogs are over there, or sounds like someone's walking in the corn, and it was just so much fun. We did that after The Conjuring, and The Conjuring alone already builds so much tension through the music and demons. Demons in movies, when they're done right, like in The Conjuring, always creep me out more than like anything else, because you kind of are like, are they real? Are they not real? There's like history there. And The Conjuring knocked out of the park. This is one of the creepiest movies I've seen in theaters, and it's just one of the best. To me, it's an instant classic. It's one of the greatest horror movies, definitely of the last 20 years, and probably the closest movie that has to scaring me that I can even remember in modern times. So there you have it. Those aren't all the moments, obviously, that scared me. Just some of them that stick out in my head still to this day on movies or scenes from movies that really scared me, whether I was a child or an adult. So please, in the comments, let me know. What scared you? Whether you were a child or adult, both, let me know in the comments which ones. So make sure you subscribe, leave us a like, and catch you in the next one.